It's a recent survey that kind of shows how screwed we are as a country. It appears that more than 1 in 5 Americans believes in QAnon. So now, some of you might still, I don't know if you've been living under a rock, but you might not know what QAnon is. And some of you might have heard of QAnon, but you might not, know what exactly that means. Well, QAnon, simply put, is a conspiracy theory that there is a Satan-worshipping pedophile ring in charge of our government, specifically the Democratic Party, and that Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, was one of the only few that was fighting against it. Now, again, 1 in 5 Americans believe that. And by the way, that same Satan-worshipping pedophile ring is also allegedly scaring children in order to drink their brain juice called adrenochrome. And so that's the other thing that they're allegedly doing as well. And so 1 in 5 Americans believes in insanity. Wow. So now this is according to that survey from the Public Religion Research Institute. You have probably seen this. It's not necessarily new. It actually came out last week, but I really wanted to talk about it because of the implications. And of course, the breakdown of who believes this stuff and why. Now, you are not going to be surprised to find out that the biggest predictor of whether or not you believe in this insanity is watching right-wing media. Like, conservative YouTube channels, conservative, blogs, and other media. Okay? So now the survey of 5,149 adults living across the U.S., released last Thursday, finds a strong correlation between consuming right-wing media sources and accepting conspiracy theories such as QAnon. Americans who say they consume far-right news sources reported the highest rates of conspiracy theory acceptance, close to half, so they believe in the tenets of QAnon. The survey defined outlets such as Newsmax, One American News Network, or OANN as far-right. It's true. Now, there's an interesting question to this that I think is attached, and I don't think a lot of people are asking this. What came first? Did the networks initially spread QAnon? Or, it came up from, I guess, the fever swamps of 8chan or 4chan, whatever. And then what? Is the fact that it was getting spread around right-wing media by influencers the reason that people picked up on it? Or are the news outlets reacting to something that the people already believed? That's the question. And that the people, people in Newsmax, whatever, OANN, are just now parroting the conspiracy theory for clicks. I mean, it's curious. Now, you're not going to, of course, be surprised at who's susceptible to this. Again, right-wing media sources. Well, who consumes right-wing media? A lot of white evangelicals, turns out. But not only that, but you have Hispanic Protestants that were the most susceptible to QAnon conspiracies. So obviously, religion is a very important part of what, of a predictor of whether or not you're going to believe in these crazy conspiracies. And about 1 in 4 respondents from those religious groups said they believe the government, the media, and financial worlds in the U.S. are controlled by a group of Satan-worshipping pedophiles who run a global child sex trafficking operation that is notably higher than the 15% of black Protestants, as well as 15% of Americans overall, who agreed with that statement. At 8%, Jewish Americans were the religious group least likely to say that they agree. And there's probably a reason for that. Jewish people happen to be the recipients, the targets of many of these conspiracy theories. Now, you'll also not be surprised that people who are not exposed to a post-secondary education were also more likely to be QAnon. So basically people without college degrees. In fact, people without those degrees responded to the survey were 3 times more likely to believe in just general conspiracy theories than Americans who had completed college. Now, why is that? I think honestly, it's because college is about exposure to different people and new ways of thinking, as well as instructing people on how to be better critical thinkers. I mean, if you just did your 4 years of high school, you're not exactly shown how to think critically, to separate factual information from false information, or to see the signs of disinformation. This doesn't mean that you can't do that, that you're incapable or you're stupid. No, 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 no. Like, you can be an incredibly smart person and go to college and still graduate and be a dipshit. It just shows. This survey shows that it's much more likely that if you don't have those skills, that you're obviously going to be more susceptible to insane conspiracy. Okay, again, and it's a lot of these different factors combined. If you don't have that education or those critical thinking abilities, and you're a religious person, and you're a right winger, and you're white evangelical, you're much more likely to be somebody who is a believer in these, that the Democrats are cracking open kids' heads and drinking their brain juice after scaring the crap out of them. So that is who is more susceptible here. And again, I'm generalizing a bit here. For me personally, yeah, I think going to school kind of opened me up to questioning more authoritative sources and institutions. Although I've kind of questioned authoritative institutions my whole life. Anybody who knew me in high school, they would say that was a little bit different. Now, a couple more devastating things. A full 20% of respondents agreed with this statement. Quote, there is a storm coming soon that will sweep away the elites in power and restore the rightful leaders. Who are these rightful leaders that they're talking about? Well, you talk to Republicans, 50% of them are going to say, obviously, Donald Trump. And that's kind of scary because Donald Trump is now also talking about being reinstalled into power in August at the end of the summer. And 15% of respondents agreed with that. They say that because things have gotten so far off track, true American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to, quote unquote, save our country. That is coming from a group of people who are heavily armed and also, again, believe without any evidence, because you don't need evidence for conspiracies, that America is run by a group of satanic pedophiles. I mean, this really shows you that the propaganda works. I mean, they reach people through channels you wouldn't believe. Like, for example, innocuous, like mommy groups on Facebook. Facebook is a huge recruiting tool. And before you know it, of course, bam, you're into anti-vax conspiracies, you're into just right-wing general nonsense. But it gets worse because that rabbit hole leads you to more and more extreme content and extreme ideas. And of course, YouTube is pretty bad at pushing people towards right-wing extremist content through their algorithms, their automated, systems that will begin recommending content. And so you end up, with your race realists, your anti-SJW YouTubers, your anti-feminists, and soon you get pushed down the QAnon pipeline. And then you always end up at anti-Semitism. Because at the end of the road, they always go to anti-Semitism. So it's really a big pervasive problem among the right. We're not talking about like differences in, I believe the government, should have a little bit lesser of a regulatory role upon our businesses and slightly slower tax rates for corporations. Yes, I think that will help job growth in businesses. No, we're not talking about that because we can have some real conversations. We can have some real differences on that. No, that's not what the right wing is saying. The right wing is saying, I hate you because you're part of a pedophilic cult that eats children and babies, and therefore you are a literal spawn of Satan. Like, you can't have a conversation with those people. You can't work with those people. They're not going to want to work with you, and you're not going to want to work with them, and you're not going to want to improve the country, make the country better. In fact, I mean, they're really close to being violent. And that's a problem. And so, again, it's a really big, pervasive problem. And the part that I feel, and part of that, of course, I feel is the fault of the media, mainstream media, for example. There's a big distrust in media for good reason. And the far right has been able to capitalize on that, literally for, clicks and ad revenue and recruitment. And of course, that is the nature of capitalism. And by the way, the things that are popular on YouTube, for example, is rage bait. You got people out there that just make, do content that ensures that their audience is constantly angry. And of course, you get that, like, you get those segments like college student destroyed with facts and logic, or the government's coming after you, they're doing this and this and that. And at the end of the day, I mean, yes, conspiracies a lot of times do have a kernel of truth in them, but then you surround it with lies and bullshit in order to really get people angry and riled up. They get the shot of dopamine and a community to rage with, and they keep coming back. And so that is a capitalist incentive to continue to lie to people. And not only that, but you also have an entertainment factor. You got people like Alex Jones. Alex Jones is a clown. He's an absolutely clownish individual. Okay?
You're full of shit!
I know, Alex. Definitely.
I'm sick of all these witches and warlocks.
And so you've got that, and understand that Alex Jones is a pretty entertaining guy. He's batshit, but he's entertaining as hell. And so people will want to listen to him. And then pretty soon, people tend to start believing them. And I mean, again, Donald Trump's a charismatic person. There's a reason people gave him a TV show, would spend an hour or hours listening to him rant at the podium for no reason. And so there is also that. I mean, charisma plays in entertainment plays a pretty large part in drawing people into conspiracies and crazy ideas. So there are a lot of different reasons, a lot of different ways that people end up falling into this complete and utter insanity. Now, the real question, of course, and the question that I can't answer is, how do you pull them out? And can you pull them out? I think you can some. You can't save them all. But of course, you need to try to bring them back to the land of the living, where people can see logic and facts and aren't living in a fantasy land. And worse, being ready for violence in that fantasy land. And so, yes, I know we can't save them all, but for God's sakes, we got to try. One in 5 Americans believing in this complete and utter nonsense. You got to try to pull them back to reality, so we can move forward as a country and do so together. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.